So that other video was a joke for April Fools, but now I'm not so sure. You know, I really tried to temper my expectations for the second book, but it definitely let me down. The first book, The Headless Hunter, it was like professionally made an anime steak by Gordon Ramsay. It was perfect, seasoned, cooked to perfection. Characters, you loved it. Plot, you loved it. And then someone brings you this thing, and it's kind of like the same steak, but the skin is purple with white stars, and it smells kind of funny. And you take a bite, and you're like, okay, this is okay, but not nearly as good as the first one. And then you peel back the layer of the skin, only to discover that it is almost exactly the same book, just written worse as before. It's the same, like, idea plot-wise. Ideas are the same. The enemies to lovers is written very similar to the first book. And that's really disappointing, because it's like the difference between Gordon Ramsay and getting served steak by his dishwasher boy. And that's really disappointing, to be honest, because I didn't have the moon and the stars expectations as from the first, even though the first book was a 5 out of 5 stars. This is a whitewashed version of that. And I can't understand why the author just kind of made it the same story but different slightly, and it wasn't as good. I had many issues, especially with the characterization. Complete and utter character assassination from the first book, which is very disappointing. I think that made me furious the most. The plot was okay. The plot was eh. It was just kind of eh. The plot mostly carried the opinion of, like, I have an opinion of this of like 3 stars when I was expecting a 4-star book. And if we're going off of characters, the characters made it a 1 or a 2-star book, actually. So it's I had some very conflicting emotions about all of this, because, like, that's a lot to process. How can a book be 3 stars and also 1 star? And I was just kind of like, well, what's the issue? What is the main beef I have with this book? Mostly disappointed because Cressida is not the main villain of this book, and she's supposed to be the Lord Voldemort of this book. Soren is not the villain is not Rune's villain of the book. Not even, what was his name? Noah, Lila, Creed, the pair of them, not the bad guys at all. Even though, like, they're supposed to be, and they're written like they're supposed to be, with Cressida just twirling her imaginary villain beard at every second. Gideon, the love interest, is the villain of this book. I almost couldn't believe that was what the author decided to do, because the other villains do not matter until about 70% of the way through this book. Up until then, Gideon is an absolute monster to Rune. Like, it's not even written in a way where it's just his trauma response where he she betrayed him at the end of book 1, and that obviously has some pretty like obvious triggers to his trauma. So like you expected him to be kind of adversarial in this book, but you did not expect him to be outright awful and just a complete 180 from his character. It made me so mad. I actually I wrote some notes out that I sent to my boyfriend about the characters that he knows absolutely nothing about. This is what I said. I said, for book 1, I was a sympathetic guy who didn't always do the right thing for the right reason, but you knew why I had trust issues and the trauma was very logical. Book 2, my trauma has returned in full force and makes me look like a raging hypocrite at almost every choice I've ever made. I'm very black and white, and though I have the hots for the female lead and act on those feelings, I still don't see my love interests people as real people, no matter what horrific violence I have been witness to by my own people, and never think of the consequences because I'm the main character. That was Gideon's energy the entire book. It sucked. And that's really such a shame, because in book 1, he was a really, like, sympathetic character, and though he had trauma and was very gruff, like, he wasn't a tool. He wasn't just the worst guy ever. And in this book, it's like, he is the most awful guy ever. He's abusive to Rune. He plans on stringing her along in his thoughts. He's like, I'm gonna string everyone along, and you never know when... You never know which side I'm on. I'm not on the side of witches. I'm not on the side of my love. I'm not on the side of my people. Like, he has no moral compass in this book, and I'm not entirely sure why that is, because he had such a strong compass in the first book. And it's not even written as if, like, oh, well, trauma will do that to you. Your compass goes woo when trauma, PTSD enters the chat. But that's not how it's written. He's just an awful character. And, like, I'm okay with complex characters. I'm okay with layers and layers and layers to characters. But it didn't feel this way. The things he did, he just either sounds like a huge hypocrite, because he was very them versus us, and there was no defining moment whatsoever for him to be like, oh, they are us, we are the same, witches and, non-magical folk, we are the same. He has never had that moment. Not one moment where he was like, oh, I shouldn't do this. This is really bad, you guys. Because as the war cranked up, his fellow soldiers became monsters, because that's war. And, like, everyone around him was becoming, like, crazier and crazier and, bloodthirsty and stuff, because they were so scared of these witches coming back to power, which was actually a thing. The witches literally do not show up until about here. Until about right here. That's the remainder of the witches. This is Rune and Gideon and everything else. And I'm just kind of like, yeah, that's the book I read. I'm just so sad, because the only thing that motivates him was Rune, essentially, and not in a, oh, I must die for my lover kind of way, but like, he just straight up 180s Uno reverses everybody. But he is the reason for all of this drama the book of the bad guys winning is because of his actions, not Rune's. Rune is also character assassinated in the worst way. Uh she's not the Crimson Moth. She is not a badass. She is nothing in this book. And I didn't realize that in the first book how often it was more of a I'm a baddie, trust me bro kind of thing until I read this second book where she literally does nothing but says trust me bro, I'm okay, or trust me bro, I'm amazing. I'm the Crimson Moth and I've done this before. She's the one with trauma in this book. And it not only happens once, it happens twice for like no reason. She has trauma from the first book. And I thought that was pretty believable. Okay, let's explore this. And then she has trauma from Cressida again, abusively, for no reason whatsoever. There was no reason, because even before then she wasn't doing anything effectively. She was just kind of like any motivation she had to be around Gideon, nothing else. Now she would say things like, oh, let me go save a witch, let me go save this other witch again. And she would say, oh, let me go save her. She's not a witch's girl. Like, she's not this world's version of witch's girl. She only cares about what Gideon's thoughts and feelings are. And then her motivations are whatever Gideon is or isn't doing in the heat of the moment. Like, there is literally she has no reason to do anything. She has no reason, no drive, no initiative, nothing. And unless it's Gideon aligned. And that really pissed me off. But yeah, she essentially becomes a shell of the character from the first book. She is dragged along again for no reason. And then she is abused by Cressida in like the one time Cressida has a minute with Rune, aside from like the first few minutes of the book. Cressida in her like evil twirling beard. She's like, I'm so evil, I'm so abusive, and I'm so crazy. That's Cressida's entire personality. That's it. She's like, I'm crazy, I'm powerful, and I'm gonna abuse ya. That's her 3 character traits. Which I thought was really disappointing, considering at the end of the first book, she had betrayed Rune in a huge way, and it mattered in the first book. So I'm not sure why they never sit down and have a conversation about what happened in the first book. They just act like she's an entirely different character out of the blue, which is weird because they keep bringing Alex in. They keep bringing up Alex, and he's not even important to the story no more. He's not in anything at all, and I won't spoil why, but like, he's not there, and he's brought up at every opportunity. Gideon's sister was brought up a few times, like, in the first book, but she's just kind of gone by the second. So I'm just kind of like, what is going on here between these guys? So Cressida abuses Rune. Rune goes and is like, I'm so afraid, I'm so traumatized, I'm so hurt, and I'm gonna just dash. I'm gonna go dash. And this is the point where Gideon had Uno reversed, so everything's okay that he'd done up until that point. Him and Rune are together for like half a second before he realizes that she has physical trauma, which takes way too long for him to notice, by the way. For someone who claims to love her so much, he sure don't notice her very much. And then when he does notice her trauma and why, and that Cressida did that to her, he's mad for about 2 seconds. And then when he realizes that Rune's trauma response to that is to flee and run away and live another day, he calls her a coward. As if he was not like the complete awful D-bag this entire book. I think that pisses me off more than words can say it. Like, he does not have the right to judge her for wanting to flee. And it feels kind of mean to anyone who has dealt with physical violence at home. Like, oh, just face down the person who committed violence against you. You know, otherwise you're a coward. Like, what? What? That's not it. I don't think so. No, I don't think that's very good advice to give someone, is confront them or you're a coward. That's really weird, especially since, like, Gideon was at least allowed to process his trauma for years. Rune is not allowed to process shit. She's not allowed a week with her trauma before they gotta get moving and do stuff again. And they need the Crimson Moth. And it's written as if she needs some glorious return to her power and being and self. And I'm just like, what is going on? What is going on in this book? This is not at all what needed to be talked about. This is not at all what needed to happen. Like, at all. I don't know why any of this is happening. There's no moment where Cressida and Rune have a moment together. There's no... The witches are just gone most of the book. They just show up as whatever the plot needs them to be. They are not people anymore, like in the first book. In the second book, they are not people. They are background people. The same kind as the people from the non-magics in the book 1 that was like calling for the slaughter of witches. The exact same thing. It's like Uno reversed. And I get it, that's like a huge theme where everybody's like, oh, you know, there is actually a dinner where Rune attends and it's basically the same thing, just reversed. Except we never see, there's never once been a human party where witches are danced around and then, you know, executed while everyone's eating dinner. Like, that does not happen. That did not happen in the book. And they're just kind of saying, like, oh, well, some of the witches are uncomfortable, but we won't give them names or any relevance to the plot at all. And I'm just like, okay, then why does this matter? Like, like, they're backing Cressida. There is no group of witches that Rune helped previously in this book that should be there. What about all the witches that Rune helped escape from the island in the first book? They should be in this book. And being all like, hey, Rune, you know, like, Crimson Moth, thank you for saving us and sparing our lives, and we're gonna join the cause because, you know, we're fighting for our rights and not to be, like, butchered and hunted anymore. And then she'd be like, oh, okay, that's great. And then once she's, like, openly going against Cressida, and Cressida gradually gets worse and worse and exposes heinous crimes and, does everything awful in front of everybody. They're like, oh, okay, we don't want any more violence. We already had enough violence. We already had enough violence. Okay, thanks. No more violence. But no, that doesn't happen. There's no scene where Rune connects to any of the witches. Rune is just as alone in the second book as she is in the third book, which is honestly very sad because this is supposed to be one of those, oh, love conquers a revolution or whatever. I mean, it's also the exact same reason why I really hate romances during like war books where they're like, oh, we gotta fight, change the system. We gotta we gotta do away with Hunger Games. We got a Divergent and whatever, Maze Runner, blah, 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 blah. All of those books that came out in like 2010. And it's like, this, not exactly like Hunger Games level, not from like popularity, it's just not written that way, but it's like, it's not very believable that two people like help take down the power of the world or whatever, the government. Two people. And I say two people because the entire book is about two people falling in love and doing all of that, all the bad that they, doing all of the shenanigans that they gotta do to take down the power. And it's like, okay, but like, where's your 1,000 people army? Where's your army? And they even do that. They always do. They always are like, let's get the gang back together and like take down the power and convince people to to do the right thing this time. And I'm just kind of like, what people? You have no people. There are no people in this book. Sorry, I got like some dust in my throat. So then I was like, there's no people. And then I shit you not, at like this part of the book, at the end, this is the end. I shit you not, the gays come out of the woodwork. And I'm being glib about that and very like I don't mean that in a bad way, obviously, but like there's no other way to describe what's happening. Okay. There is a gay couple who Rune knows from the first book, from a throwaway line. She's like, oh, it's Lord so-and-so and his lover, Sir Cook. What are you doing here? And and then he's like, oh, well, we don't kind of get down with the witches or the blood guards, so we're just hauled up here in my cottage until whatever. And it's like, okay. And then Harrow, that I think her name is Harrow. I just call her Heron in my brain. It doesn't matter. Harrow, a prominent character in the first book. In the second book, I was like, she's gotta have something amazing, some crazy backstory that we'll get into in this book because she was such an important character in the first book. I mean, I did say the gays came out of the woodwork, and I did mean that, actually, because her lover was a witch, and, like, I thought her backstory was pretty cool, I mean, it was always gonna be cool. It was always gonna be badass. And like, I'm super like, how do I explain this? She's awesome, and that's cool and all, but also kind of irrelevant for the rest of the book. They made such a badass character a complete nothing for the second book. She was a lackey in the first one, but she was kind of like the badass lackey. And then in the second book, she's the nobody lackey. And that makes me so sad. Because she was badass. And I was so excited to hear her about her story. And it's interesting. I honestly think she could have been the main character of this story, to be honest. That's how much potential Harrow had with her witch girlfriend Juniper. And I think that was a plot missed out, honestly, because it felt very rushed at the end, and I'm very sad to see that she didn't really mean a whole lot. I kind of wish we had got to see them make up, because not make out, make up. Because like I said, she's a prominent character in the first book, and she's just shoved back in the wall like it's nothing. I was so sad. There was like 3 world building elements that happened in the last 60 pages of the book. The author decided to world build and introduce characters in the last 60 pages of her book. Oh my gosh. Well, it was about 60 to 70 pages, but it honestly doesn't matter. It's still bad either way. So with all of this being said, like, I'm pretty sure you're thinking, oh, you must absolutely hate it. But this is like I said, this book is about 2 characters and nobody else. So when the 2 characters really suck, I mean, what are you supposed to do? Like I said, this could have been a 1 or 2 star just based off the shitty character assassination that happened. I loved the plot. I loved the very first scene with Rune and Gideon at the wedding shop. Like, I loved that. That was neat. And I thought that was getting in the swing of the Scarlet Moth. Crimson Moth, my bad. Sorry. Same color, whatever. The Crimson Moth. That was badass. And it was a whole thing. And I loved it. It is like the only time in the entire book where Rune is a badass and nothing else. And that makes me so frustrated, because then Gideon's just a badass the entire way, and he's a hypocrite, and he's a jackass the entire time. And I felt nothing for them when they got together at the end. I felt nothing. I really didn't feel anything. Because this character assassination just did it in for me. I loved that they did the steamboats, like the whole scene. That Gideon, they ran into an old flame. They ran into people who weren't blood guard or witches. I wanted something with the witches. Like, they had nothing going on. They were literally just sitting on their damn hands. And I'm sorry, but if so much can happen with Rune, why isn't anything happening with Cressida? Like, what's her deal? Like, she even had a minion or 2 that Rune killed, and that was badass. But, like, then I'm just thinking, like, okay, that's badass, and And then they're like, well, remember Cressida is abusive? Well, we're just gonna make her abuse Rune, and then that'll settle everything. And I was just kind of like, what do you mean? Why does she need this? She doesn't need a second trauma trigger. She was already in tears, drinking her woes away about the first book. About a certain someone, which I can't say without spoilers. And I know it sounds like I don't care about spoilers, but I literally am just generalizing what I've read and my feelings about it. It's just like, if you need proof, I will put up the screenshots that I have saved, like, right now. I'll give it a minute. But this is basically all the screenshots that I have been... I made a buttload of. And so I was like, okay, I can't say shit without proof, so here's the proof, you know? That would be very bad and not very fair. Okay. So the final thing of this book that I also wanted to talk about was that they were kind of shaming the witches for, like, ruling the non-magical folk people. Like, remember, at this point of the book, and throughout the entire book, the Blood Guard is whipped up into a frenzy. They are executing people left and right. Any sympathizers are being, like, not jailed and scarred. They are now officially, like, just killed and murdered in the streets. And people, like, this is what fascist does. That's just how it is. And and Gideon is just like, well, I'm okay with this because the other side is witches and they're monsters because I have trauma. And Rune is like, I gotta save this witch again. Like, that's the concept. And, like, that's why I say it's recycled from the first one, because she's also saving another witch. So it's witch number 2 trying to be saved. And she's like, I gotta do this. I gotta figure it out. And, like, there's a reason why, but I'm not going into that because this video is long enough. And if I go into that, I'll just go into a whole separate rant about chosen ones and bullshit like that. So, like, she goes after the witch, and then that's resolved, essentially. And then after that, Cressida starts to be like, oh, I'm the boogeyman on the horizon. Watch me creep and crawl all the way. In my slow ass boat. So, yeah, so then Cressida comes and literally scares the britches off of the Blood Guard, and all of them, the fascists, go running. And you would think, oh, yay, that's a good thing. Except Cressida is the crazy witch queen, So, like, she's just bad. And there's not really a reason why she's just bad. She's just bad. And she's bad to be bad. And that's it. There is nothing deeper there. Then the witches are back in power, and they start killing off the non-magical people again. So it's like, oh, one fascist for another. And, like, instead of handling that with a bit more background nuance and grace, the characters are just kind of like, this is the part where Gideon Uno reversed his hypocrisy. So that's when everything was okay with him, and Rune is now okay with him, I guess. So they're together, and then he's like, he like takes her out for ice cream, and then she's just like, oh, ice cream, yay, yummy. I love eating all ice cream. I used to eat it with Gran all the time. And then he's like, I never got to eat ice cream because my family was dirt poor, and I will always remind you about how poor my family was. and then she's like, oh, that's nice. I love sugar. And he's like, my dad hated sugar. And she's like, who the hell hates sugar? And he's like, well, Rune, when you're dirt poor as me, you'll never have to, you never get the finer things. And she's just like, how insensitive I was being. Oh my gosh. and she's like, how insensitive. Oh my gosh. I had pretty privilege. I was so, I always had the ability to change those around me, but like I was so rich and young and like 5 years old, and I could, me and Gran benefited from privilege of the rich, but like didn't share in the in the wealth, and also also like didn't stop the crazy witches from being crazy bitches. And I'm like, here we go again. Like, here's another author that did this again. So yeah, it's like every time a character wipes their ass or has ice cream, apparently they gotta feel guilty for not being dirt ass poor to enjoy ice cream. God, I'm sorry, but like, can we just not? Okay, it's always the same, pretty rich girl from a well-to-do family gets all the nice things, and she's just awful, and her family's like the villain for not like giving to the poor or something, even though like I wrote this note about it because like straight up Nan and her witch friends that were in power, her grandmother owned a shipping company. Like, she wasn't an aristocrat in that sense of business and politics. She was just a business owner. And the book makes it very clear that she was just a business owner who had a lot of friends in the witch world. That's it. If any, and I always thought it was kind of weird since Gideon's whole family weren't Gideon's entire family were dirt poor until they caught the eye of the Rosebloods and made that whole thing. But it confused me because like that's how they went from rags to riches, and they had to live in the palace and not leave ever. And up until that point they were dirt poor, and like I understand that, but like Gideon acts like such a poor boy, the sad poor boy that got mad that others had things he didn't have. And like then the authors always, it's not just this one, it's all of them, they're just like, oh, you got to read. Wow, what privilege. You got to write. You got to know how to, an instrument. You got, you know how to dance. You know how to eat ice cream. Pick your nose. Like, wow. And it's just kind of like, okay, come on. We all have something. Okay, we all have something that nobody else has. That's what growing up and living is. Some of us are farmers who didn't like get the Chanel bag. Okay. That doesn't mean that those who can afford Chanel bags need to get like shamed for having a nice thing. And especially when that thing is usually just ice cream. It's ice cream. This isn't like US versus Africa, okay? Like, I'm sure people in Africa would love to have ice cream, but like, come on. He also wasn't like poor after the revolution. You know, he was in one of the commanding officer spots, so like I'm sure he had a very nice income from the army he was serving. Like it sounded like every time they tried to make Gideon sound humble, I couldn't help but notice that they were talking about how like also like within the same chapter or so they would be like, well, he's a commander, he was part of the revolutionary, he's not a sympathizer, he's part of the top brass, that's why everybody bows and respects him. And I'm just kind of like, okay, well, typically people in the top brass dress nicely, they eat good food, and they don't live in poor town. But like the author's like, oh, but he lives in poor town, like he just can't. It's kind of like the reverse, not like other girls but for guys. That's like for guys it's like, oh, I can't live within my means, I have to be less than within my means, otherwise it just doesn't matter. Because like Rune is the rich girl with the fancy dresses and the balls, blah blah blah, and and it's like therefore Gideon is not allowed to have nice things. But after this book, I believe it too. Thank you for listening all the way through to the end of my pretty critical review. Sorry, on to the next one, I guess. Thank you. Bye.